Hey guys, in this video we're going to go over something that I've learned after a lot of years of styling, and that is how much your base wig actually affects your final style. I know I always say that you can really make any wig work for your project, and that's true with enough time and effort. But if you could make your life a lot easier, why wouldn't you? So as an example, if I want to make a spiked updo versus something that's really short, the wig that I want to start with is going to be really different. In this video, I'm going to go over what to consider, what to look out for when choosing your base wig, and also some of my all-time favorites that I like to use over and over again from Arda Wigs. So actually, one of the biggest considerations when choosing a base wig is not necessarily something like, is it curly or straight, or is it short or long? It's actually how the wig is wefted, how the wig itself is constructed. For those of you who've not yet watched my 1-hour extreme wig styling tutorial, I'm going to link it here, but a weft is essentially hair fiber that is sewn onto a wig track, creating this very nice, convenient little bit of hair that is then sewn into the wig. And if you flip one of your own wigs inside out, you can see where all of these wefts have been sewn in. Kind of, if we lay it right here, you can see what's going on. And essentially, the more of these you have, the thicker your wig is. The direction that the weft is sewn in, however, is the real meat here. This is what determines what direction the hair wants to fall in. Most wigs are sewn with the weft pointing downwards, probably radiating out from the crown or a part or something like that. And in that case, if we have our weft sewn downward, the hair is going to naturally want to point downward. That's the direction it goes in. You can heat train it back up, but what's usually going to happen is you'll end up exposing a lot of the wefting and the innards of your wigs. Anyone who's ever tried to just ponytail a wig that is not meant to be a ponytail wig knows this pain. So the biggest key with your wig base is if you are trying to style, say, an updo, there are other styles to choose from where the wefts are sewn in a different direction. One example of that is something like a Melinda or a Morpheus, where the wefts are reverse wefted into the wig. And all that really means is instead of the wefts being sewn in and pointing downwards, we have sewn them in and pointed them upwards, which means that up is the natural direction that the hair wants to go, and that is perfect for a really high updo, a really high spiked style, anything that really requires the wefts going in that direction. This is a Morpheus right here, and it might be a little difficult to see, but towards the top of the wig, we have the track here, and the hair is all pointed downwards because it's sewn in this direction. But towards the bottom of the wig, which is the really troublesome place if you're trying to do the updo, the wefts are sewn in reverse. We have the track and the hair is pointing up in this direction. These are really excellent styles to start with if you want to do a very high updo and you do not want to spend any time rearranging the wig. You can do this yourself if you need a different wig for whatever reason. Like in this case, I wanted this particular color, it didn't come in these special styles, and so I essentially recreated this Morpheus style myself by removing some wefts from a normally wefted wig, pulling them out, flipping them, and sewing them back in reversed. That is an absolutely totally valid way to mimic that kind of style and get a beautiful updo. It's just gonna take you a while, and so, you know, if you can get a base wig that makes your life easier, why not just do it? I'm like at the point of my life where I'm just like, I want my cosplays to make themselves, and I want them done as quickly as possible. This is a wig that I made for Tendo from Haikyuu because I'm a weird person. But as you can see, a lot of the wefts are still pointed downwards, but I have pulled out and re-sewn this bad boy in, and this bad boy, and this bad boy, so that they are pointing in the upward direction, and so that my end result is a wig that I can push upwards and not have any exposed netting on the inside. Most people are probably familiar with the concept of ponytail and chibi wigs at this point, but you might not realize that the reason they work so well, instead of being sewn in from the crown downwards, what we instead have are these wefts that are all pointed towards where the pigtail is going to go. So that way we can gather up the hair, and it is wonderful and thick, and nothing is showing here in these gaps. This is a similar wefting style for any sort of ponytail wig. You're probably going to have those wefts, like in a genie or a jasmine, radiating out of the top so that everything can be gathered up there with no exposed wefts showing. On the subject of wefts, another important thing to bear in mind is how many wefts are actually in the wig. This is important very especially for those super short styles. Unless you're confident at wig styling, cutting a super short wig is really intimidating. I don't personally like to do it because I know that I have a high chance of messing it up. Instead, I buy a pre-made short style because those ones tend to have a lot more hair in them. The problem that I personally run into when cutting a wig super short is that once you clip that fiber really close, you run the risk of exposing each of those wefts. Remember, these things are not on top of each other. We've got a good 1 centimeter gap or so between each of the wefts, and so if I cut the hair less than a centimeter, suddenly I'll be able to see this weft in the wig because the hair is not long enough to cover it. So you have to be incredibly careful. The alternative, of course, is to start with a base wig that's really meant for short hair. Styles like the Rocky, the Kyle, even kind of the Jet to an extent, these are specifically made to be short, and in order to do that, what Arda does is they add in a lot more wefts than are in the other wigs. This is the distance between wefts in a typical wig, and this is the distance between wefts in a super short style wig like the Rocky. They are way closer together, and the idea is we know that the hair is going to be much shorter, and having the wefts that much closer means that this short hair still covers the distance between each of the tracks. As always, you can make your own super short style just by essentially adding more of these wefts yourself. Anyone can do that. It's really easy. However, if you don't want to, you want to start with the right style wig and you don't want to do all that work, I would instead go for, say, a Rocky, Kyle, which is a version of this wig with more hair on top, which is great for undercuts or that kind of cool, tall on top, short in the back boy style. Jet is my personal favorite, even though it's a bit longer than this, but starting with these super dense wigs is very helpful if you want to save yourself some time. Aside from the wefting direction for things like updos and ponytails, there's some other stuff to bear in mind when choosing your base wig. One is if you are just going for a general spiky short style, there's a couple base styles that are absolutely hands down my favorite. I think probably the Hansel is the one that I go with the most. A lot of this is kind of already layered out for you, and then I don't have to do that, and I enjoy that a lot. If you need even more volume out of your wig, something like the Jareth is even better. The crown looks a little bit different, which is why I tend to default to Hansel more, but if you need that super animu spiked style, the Jareth actually comes a little bit pre-teased at the top. Normally when I spike something, I need to add a little bit of teasing at the base of the wig. To add a little bit of volume, you want to tease the base. Or you can get a style where it's already done for you. Another consideration for those super big anime spikes, especially when they're medium to large size spikes, is you might just simply need more hair in the wig itself. Once again, back to the wefting. If you flip it inside out, the volume of your wig is determined by how many wefts are in your wig. So if you want to make a wig that's absolutely enormous without super texturizing the hair, essentially the way to do that is to just simply start with more hair. Put more hair into the wig. And the method for doing that is called making a double thick wig, where you essentially take wefts or harvest wefts from a different equal wig and put them on in here. If you add more wefts to the wig, you have more hair in the wig and more to work with. Or you can start with a base wig where that's already done for you, and then you don't have to spend any time at all doing it. I was really pleased when the Nigel came out. I was just like, this wig was made for me personally. This is actually a double thick wig. It's literally made for you. It's double thick. You don't have to do anything to it. So you could just start with it and start spiking and be done with it. It's a good technique to know, but again, if you can save yourself some time, let's do that. One final thing that you should always consider when choosing your wig is curly versus a straight wig. It is always, of course, possible to curl or straighten your own wig using heat, but there is a caveat. The important thing you want to bear in mind is, can your straightened or curled wig, once you are done with the work, be the correct length? So for instance, if you are curling the wig, bear in mind that this is going to actually make the wig a lot shorter when you're done. Hair that falls straight and flat Once you curl it up, you're going to lose a couple inches or potentially more depending on the length of your wig. You need to take extra care to be sure that the wig that you are purchasing to curl is going to be the right length when you're done. You may be surprised to find out that there's a similar consideration that you need to bear in mind when straightening a curly wig. If you look close at a lot of these styles, the reason you have these beautiful curly ringlets is that the hair is really gently feathered throughout. It's not actually just a stick straight piece of hair. So what might happen is as you straighten the wig, yes, the hair will be straight, but it will actually be very gently feathered. And sometimes that feathering begins really high up, like as high as the chin. So if you're like me and you buy a curly style intending to cut a super stick straight flat bob, you may be a little bit surprised. This is probably not a big deal for most people, but it's just something that I personally ran into, and I did all this work of straightening and cutting and trimming up the wig, and then I finished and I looked at it and I was like, oh. What I actually tend to do now is rather than buying a curly wig and then straightening it, I will buy a longer straight wig, even if I'm trying to get something really short, and then I will just cut it up myself rather than risk that same feathering thing happening. So those are just some base style tricks that I have learned over the years. Thank you so much to Arda Wigs for putting together this seminar, and also be sure to watch their masquerade, which is coming up this week. If you need any more tutorials or tips, you can always check them out on Arda's website, check them out on my own Instagram or TikTok, and also if you really want stuff, I have a book as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.